There's been a massive response to the fight for internet neutrality or net neutrality in the country, with celebrities across the country joining this cause. Now, more than 30,000 emails have been sent to the telecom regulator, TRAI, in response to its call for public consultation. More than 1.5 lakh people have signed up for an online petition on change.org, also a website called Save the Internet, asking the government to ensure the net remains neutral. Yet another site, as we mentioned, savetheinternet.in, is urging people to log on and email its templated reply to the TRAI. This issue received another boost on Sunday when an explainer on net neutrality disappeared from Facebook for nearly 20 minutes. Though the matter was resolved, questions were raised whether the disappearance was intentional. Net neutrality ensures all services across the internet are charged uniformly across the board. However, some telecom companies have been pressurizing the TRAI and the government to let them charge more for some services like WhatsApp, Viber, Skype, apps that undercut their own services. TRAI has released a consultation paper with 20 questions spread across 118 pages and has asked people to reply on them by the 24th of April. All right, let's quickly go across to cyber expert Pawan Duggal, who's now with us. Now, Pawan, is it fair on the part of telecom operators to actually even pressurize or actually even think along these lines? I mean, do we have any country in the world which actually practices this sort of, this method?
Well, first and foremost, the entire issue of net neutrality is only beginning to emerge, and no final word has yet been written or said on the same, even in the US per se. But the bigger issue is, do we really want to divide the internet? Internet is a global heritage of mankind as a whole. So if you're going to divide the internet into two broad areas of haves and have-nots, in terms of people who are affluent, who can pay, will be given better services, versus those who can't pay, who will be relegated as second-grade internet citizens. I think in a context of the Indian environment, such kind of a concept is totally unpalatable, because that concept itself is in violation of the principles enshrined in the Constitution of India. So clearly work needs to be done in this regard. Just because service providers have spent money putting the infrastructure on, they have done it so because they wanted to earn profits, revenues out of that, not out of any kind of a charitable initiative, and which they are already running, and they are already earning profits. But to say I'm going to enhance the value of monies charged for services provided, I think that would itself be very, very debatable and very controversial.
Now, why, Pawan, just want to understand for the benefit of, a person who's using a phone and using particularly internet on phone, why are the service providers, from what I gather, this is almost a sense of insecurity where they want to charge more, they want some form of perhaps taxation regime in a way for certain sites that you use. Why would net operators or why would telecom operators want to do something like this? What's your opinion on this?
Well, I think the telecom operators or the intermediaries have quickly realized that a large chunk of their internet traffic is going to certain specified sites because of their popularity. And hence, the thought process has emerged that, okay, if that's where the majority of the traffic is going, it might be a good idea to charge preferentially for that specific traffic. Well, that is a concept. Net neutrality is a concept that exists in the US. But in the Indian environment, the ground realities are completely different. In fact, India as a nation is completely different from the US. 61% of all Indian online users only access the internet through their mobile devices. So if you're going to do any such kind of a thing, such kind of an activity is likely to prejudicially impact the growth and further emergence of the mobile web in India. So the Indian realities have to be taken into consideration before we can move forward. But right now, the matter is before consultation paper before TRAI. And mind you, TRAI is only a recommendatory body. It can only give recommendations to the government. So the ball is ultimately going to come back to the government, who would have the prerogative of coming up with appropriate legislative frameworks to deal with it if at all the government so deems it necessary.
Right. Mr. Duggal, one last question before I let you go. Do you think that this has got to do with the, a sort of internet or internet on mobile trying to step into the primary role of the telecom operators, that is calls? I mean, it was very interesting that one of a major chat websites that people use quite commonly on the phone, WhatsApp, has very recently launched, the calling facility where you don't need, the call services. All you have to do is, if there is a person who has WhatsApp installed, and a lot of them actually do, you can just directly call.
So surely I think there's a sense of insecurity, because if the traditional calling paradigm is going to be changed by these newly emerging services, then that has the service providers bothered. And the argument on that side of the fence is, why should we allow these over-the-top applications, who have not even paid anything for the network, to use our network per se, and therefore picky ride on the investments that the intermediaries and service providers have done? Well, that's an argument, and it could have its own merits. But I think whether any argument is going to be ultimately successful or not has to be seen in the context of the social scenario and the milieu of each specific country.
Pawan, you look at it this way also. I mean, I'm only playing devil's advocate. You look at the Google story. Google initially started in 2004, where they used to provide their email service by invitation only. Then it became an open platform where anyone could have a Gmail account. Then now you have a situation where Google charges for certain select services. So there could perhaps be an element of earning profits. First creating a market and then earning profit. Even websites do so. So if telecom operators are thinking along those lines, why should they be, quote unquote, punished or be dubbed as a villain?
I think that's a good argument, and it's got its own economic merits as well. But what stand is India going to take is going to be dependent on the collective wisdom of the political will. And the stand that you will have to take will be again dependent on your economic, mobile realities and the expectations and aspirations of your internet users. So it will be very interesting to see how this entire issue evolves, because both sides of the spectrum or the schools of thought have their own respective arguments, and they have logical reasonings why these arguments should be accepted. But the good news is that nowhere in the world there has been a final word said on net neutrality, and I think each country will have to adopt its own specific national approaches of how to deal with this ticklish, complicated yet very complex issue.
Absolutely. Pawan Duggal, cyber law expert, many thanks for joining us this morning and having this very enriching discussion. Of course, this is going to be a very interesting and crucial topic. Of course, ever since it was highlighted by AIB yesterday, we have seen that close to 30,000 petitions or response has in fact been given to the TRAI on this particular issue. And no prizes for guessing what the people of this country are actually saying. Most of this response is actually in favor of net neutrality.